Welcome, everybody. It is February 12th, 2025. I'm here with Brian. And Brian, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. Waiting for the snowstorm that we got coming in the Midwest to hit so I can get up nice and early and shovel. But other than that, I am fabulous. How about you?
I like the enthusiasm. Yes, I'm waiting on that as well. The weather, whatever, pushed it back from, I think 6 p.m. was when it was supposed to start. So now it's just like over the night or something. I don't know. I haven't kept up with it.
Yeah, earlier this week, it was like supposed to start at like noon today and then go until like 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Now it's like it was 4 o'clock. Now it's overnight. So who knows if it's actually coming in? Could just be all make believe, like the Matrix.
Well, the Matrix is very real, but that's a story for a different time. Uh,
We don't have enough time for that today.
yeah, but either way, yeah, I think most of the snowstorms we were supposed to get like a lot. I was driving up north Michigan, and I was driving my buddy because we were going to my buddy's cabin. So a different buddy, not the buddy that has the cabin. And we hit this crazy snowstorm, and I was thinking about like getting off. Like people are going down to like 20 miles an hour, low visibility, snow coming down sideways, like packing the road. And he looks up the radar, and it's this small little line, like this little rectangle. And he's like, no, we just keep driving for like 3 more miles. We'll be past it. And sure enough, like drive a little bit further and no snow on the ground, no snow coming. You look behind and you can literally see the storm, you can see the snow, and then there's just like a wall where it stops. It was the craziest thing. Like, definitely not the craziest thing I've ever seen, but yeah, I mean, it was weird. So yeah, it was clear road once we got past that for the rest of the way up. So I don't know anything about weather patterns. I think weather people are just gypsies and just guessing half the time. But yeah, if you understand like weather patterns and like how there could be that tiny snowstorm in terms of miles, because it was only like 10 to 12 miles long at that short point, like the width of it, but it was long, like east to west. It was crazy.
I can go through a database and tell you what's wrong with it, but I could not tell you anything about science. The jury's still out on that one for me. It's never, never really clicked in between these two ears.
Yeah, I like we get lake effect, and it's supposed to be the humidity off the lakes that form into these clouds that basically just dump on the coast of western Michigan. And I don't get it. I don't the lake effect thing. I don't get. If you look up the rain map, like which areas get the most rain in the United States, there's Seattle, parts of Florida, and they're like very small. It would be like a county that gets all that rain, and then there will be counties near them that get like not nearly as much rain. So it's one of those things like traffic. I still don't understand how CDs get sound or CDs work in general, or like tapes or vinyls for that matter. But yeah, weather is just a whole other black box that I haven't really dug into, and I don't feel like I would believe anything that they're saying anyways. I think it's just witchcraft.
What you just said was witchcraft. I'm going to burn you next time I see you.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, tie me in a bag, and if I escape, then I'm a witch. If I drown, then I wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's what we do. We invent a time machine, and we send a meteorologist back to Salem.
Yeah. It's like Terminator. The future can't exist without the past, and or the past can't exist without the future.
Yeah, so like, who were they? Was it just meteorologists that they sent back to Salem, and that's what started the whole thing?
Yeah, I guess. some broad who could tell you when it was going to snow, and then they burned her.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Send back with like a barometer or something. They're talking about air pressure. Like, what do you fucking mean air pressure? It's just air. Like, how is it? And people get like, they'll have a broken ankle or they'll have a hip replacement or something. Like, they knew it was going to rain because their hip or their ankle started hurting. Like, what is that?
Again, the jury's still out on that whole science thing. I don't get it. I mean, you can use your big fancy words to try and confuse me, but I still don't believe you.
But even still, like, I went down the rabbit hole the other day with CDs and videotapes because if you're old enough, you remember VHS tapes and maybe the iterations of videotapes before that. But I guess because I seen a news report that VHS tapes are starting to lose their quality. Like eventually they're just going to wear down to the point where you can't really watch them anymore. Um,
Oh.
but with VHS, it had something to do with magnets. So it was all negative film. And then
Right.
there was like magnets or something so they could get the sound. There were magnets in the VHS so that they could get the sound out of the tape because it was just film. But there was something with magnets, I think, that had something to do with the sound. Whereas CDs, I think, is just simply them looking at the still images that are burned in a circle on the CD. And they were explaining the sound too, but I have to go back and actually look to see what they were saying. I know the VHS has something to do with magnets. That's as far as I understood about it.
I completely zoned out because you were talking witchcraft. We might just want to stop this recording right now. This is getting too real right now.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like what else about the world that you're just never going to be able to explain it to me for me to be able to understand. Like there's a whole science in figuring out how many calories something is. I think like how do you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you tell me right now.
If I were doing it, I would just count with a pencil tip how many pencil pokes it takes to poke that out on a piece of paper, like if I were tracing it, and that's how you get your calories.
All right, that could be how they do it. I don't know.
I, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, that's pretty fancy. It's pretty smart.
Yeah,
If I don't say so myself, you know, I
yeah. I
don't
mean,
want. I'm not calling myself Einstein, but you know,
well, who knows how they're actually figuring it out? You had people that were looking
right?
up what was it, goat. They would like gut a goat and it would be like reading it to see like, and that would be how they were fortune telling or reading people's palms.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
If
I
you
just
get
walk in there with a birthmark or something and they think I'm like the antichrist.
yeah, or maybe Christ himself. Who knows? You don't know. The palms know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know, it's not science. Inflation. Maybe it is actually science. I don't know. I'm sure it's
uh,
comes from the Greek word of I don't know. Couldn't even tell you.
yeah, something Latin about this is all made up to get the rich more money or something. But
There you go.
it's not something that I think is too well understood. At least when the problem really started with COVID, the stimulus checks, the issues with supply chains, but there's always some issue. There's always something that comes up, and whether it's wage increases, whether it was higher costs for the materials, higher costs for the machineries to do it, problems with the what is it like shipping, like the supply chain, as they always said, oh, it's the supply chain. Like I don't know, but sometimes I feel like that shit's just made up bullshit. Because how is an Arizona iced tea 99 cents and it has been for however long? Last time I checked, I haven't looked at this in forever. But the cost of eggs, like how are we continuously, there's always an issue. There's always an issue. Something's up with the eggs. Something goes wrong. We don't have as many eggs. Egg prices shoot up. Like the last 3 years, I swear, like every 2 months there's an egg problem. Like, what's to say they're not just making this up to try to get more money out of us? Because I know there was a lawsuit that I was part of, class action lawsuit in Michigan, that the farmers got together and they were artificially inflating the cost of milk. So, like, who's to say, like, how the fuck am I supposed to know or not know if there's a bird flu crisis at the fucking Tyson chicken or wherever the fuck Kroger keeps their chickens that lay all these eggs? Like, how am I supposed to fact check that? I don't know. So they could also just make it up. Like, how I can't verify whether it is or it isn't. But all I know is like we continue to like how we continuously have so many chickens sick.
Yeah, and it seems like every time it's worse than the previous because like you can always tell how bad it is because the price of eggs in my lifetime has never been this high. So clearly, this, at least in my opinion, has the been the most exponentially worse, case of whatever it is, just based on that fact, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's farmer greed, corporate greed, um, whoever, just lower the price of the damn eggs.
Well, it's been inflation on a ton of different accounts, and it really hit hard in grocery stores because everything in the grocery store went up. And the reason I know that we'll never have a revolution in this country is a few years ago, Gatorade went from 32 ounces down to 28 ounces, and I didn't hear a fucking word out of anybody. Anybody. They kept their mouth shut about it. They're like, "Oh, thank you, fucking Lord Gatorade, for blessing me with 4 less ounces for probably the same fucking cost anywhere." Like, and I just read an article that it was actually on LinkedIn, which I LinkedIn has become such a fucking smog of garbage. But Simply Orange, they changed their packaging that they were claiming it used less plastic, which it did because it was smaller. I think like instead of 44 ounces, it was down to 38 ounces or something like that. And they changed their packaging so it didn't look like it was Simply Orange anymore. And it was also shrunk. So shrinkflation also happens when things that you buy at a certain size go down in size, but they're still going to cost the same. And they lost tens of millions of dollars because of this packaging change. And they had also wanted the grocery stores to charge less for this, or they claimed that they wanted them to charge less for this package because it was smaller, and the grocery stores didn't. But instead, people looked at it, they thought it was cheap, it didn't look very good, so then they opted to go to get a different brand of orange juice, and I think now they're reverting their packaging back.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of that. Shame on you, Simply.
Let me just make this up. Yeah, so there's the whole r/shrinkflation subreddit that I'm going to have to go down. But sorry, it wasn't Simply Orange, it was Tropicana. Or maybe
Uh,
it's the same thing.
yeah, it might be. I know that Tropicana is, like the Nabisco of the juice, like one of the biggest ones. So it wouldn't surprise me if they bought them out. It was independent for a long time, but just like other things, gets kind of makes a boom in the industry and gets bought out by the OGs.
Yeah, that's Native, the soap brand. I don't
Hmm.
know if you're familiar with them, but yeah,
Nope.
they were bought out as well. I think. Yeah, by Procter and Gamble, November 2017 for $100 million.
Holy moly.
P&G's first major purchase in nearly a decade.
Yeah, I know that. What's the that garden salsa that's like almost exclusive to Meyer? It's like all fresh salsa or something. They do those tortilla chips, and then they have like the different salsas and like Meyer, Target, and Kroger, I think. Um, anyway,
Jack special salsa.
yeah, I think so. That sounds familiar. Anyway, they're headquartered over in Ferndale, which is just a few miles from me here in Michigan, and they were independent for a long time. And their accountant at the beginning of it was giving them crap because they would use a lot of money to get fresh ingredients to make the salsa. But eventually, after spending a lot of money, they got bought by Campbell's like 10 years ago when Campbell's was trying to expand as like a company. But then they got, is it Campbell's? I'm like 90% sure it's Campbell's. And then when Campbell's, before the pandemic started kind of tanking, they tried to sell that company. And I think the owners who they bought it from ended up buying it back. So it's what
Garden
happens when you
Fresh
get,
Gourmet in 2015 for 231 million.
yeah. But yeah, they sold to Campbell's or some major, you know, corporate company, and then they kind of ran it into the ground. They put it on their like one of their like kind of newer labels, like Fresh Label or something. It didn't do as well as they were hoping, so they ended up trying to sell it, and I believe the owners bought it back. It was a couple of years ago, but I know that's still in store.
Yeah, from the Detroit Free Press here. So Campbell's did buy it for $231 million in 2015, and they announced they were selling it in 2019 after firm posted a quarterly loss of 475 million.
Okay, let's say who bought it. I know that. Like I said, I knew that the original ownership group was interested in trying to raise funds for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to read it here, and said just says Aronson. So somewhere further up in the article, that part of a group that aimed to buy back Garden Fresh Gourmet, and yeah, seems like he was one of three groups that were bidding for it, and it doesn't seem like there's an update. But they could have been the ones to buy it back. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I still see it in store all the time. So somebody eventually bought it and kind of turned it around. But I guess my broader point was, yeah, corporate greed, and especially in the times of inflation, doesn't seem like it's ever been higher. In addition to damn chicken prices or damn egg prices.
Damn egg prices, damn chicken prices. I mean, really, anywhere you go, there's not really a way to be able to escape it. And even with, I know peaches were a big one because I used to love peaches growing up, and I would always go to the grocery store and I could never find them. And come to find out, with different weather patterns in Georgia, Florida, wherever they grow peaches at in the southeast United States, they weren't able to produce as many peaches. So there weren't
Yeah, I
as many
remember that.
peaches around. So the cost of being able to get those went up because the supply went down so much. I think the only thing we can really do, and the problem is that we're so sold on convenience. So with me, I invested in a company Kava, which is kind of like the new Mediterranean Chipotle, and they've been making waves around the United States.
Hmm.
And they're set up to be, their infrastructure set up to handle online orders, people coming in, people picking up online orders or door dashing or whatever else. And I invested in them a little while ago, but what I kind of came to the conclusion of is like these companies that sell you on convenience is are ones that are making so much more money off of people. Like Netflix announced no more password sharing. They've been increasing the prices for however long. There have been studies done on how Facebook's set up kind of like a casino with a lot of flashing lights and making you feel good about likes and all this other stuff to keep you engaged with their site as much as they possibly can, because
Yep.
that's how they make money to sell ads. Amazon, obviously, being a big one, which I'm kind of torn between because one, they solved the problem where a store wouldn't have exactly what you're looking for, your exact brand. But now, like, how are a majority of Americans having a Prime account or ordering things off Amazon because of it? And yeah, a lot of these companies that have just kind of sold you on convenience. So even with grocery stores and fast food places, I think the only real thing to be able to do is just grow your own gardens with what you're able to grow. And it's mostly like vegetables. Like I think here in Michigan, you can do some fruits, maybe like strawberries or something. But just the convenience that we've been so sold on for so long, and the companies that really dug into like the psychology of the average American, especially the average American parent, that is just looking for a way to unwind at the end of the day, or doesn't want to go and grocery shop for, or just go shopping for maybe like a new set of sheets. They can just order it on Amazon or scroll through Facebook or pick up McDonald's on the way home instead of cooking. Because I'd like to, at least this summer, get back into gardening just to try to stick it to these these food companies, because even still, like, even if half off all everything on their menu, like people just flock to them, so it's hard to even really take a stand against something, especially just being a single person against the company, to say like, oh, well, I'm not buying that because of this. And yeah, it can be effective in some ways, but at the end of the day, like, they're always going to be able to find a way to get you to engage with that brand if you have been previously. And how are you ever supposed to know all the ethics of things that go into what these companies do? And even especially talking about Native, how they are a Procter and Gamble company, and they have been for however long. Um, Not only partly due with inflation that's been an issue, but the companies that have bought up smaller companies in different sectors and whatnot that have just the boss to be the boss is just like, hey, sold the company. These guys said they take care of you, so I'm off to Hawaii or my vacation house. Like, don't call, don't text, I'm done. And they come in, and within a couple of years' time, you got your healthcare gutted. You're paying a lot more for healthcare. Your 401k match sucks. You're not getting raises, like all this other stuff. So it really not only, and they'll start charging more for their products because they understand that they can. I know there was a case study in college where there was the cheeseburger index, and not to be confused with Big Mac index that was used to measure inflation. But it was basically that these fast food restaurants kind of colluded and understood that people were willing to spend more on a cheeseburger than they originally thought. So they just kept marking the price up until they started getting a decline in sales. So, the dollar menu that is ancient in terms now of like 15, however many years ago, like they could probably still make money just charging a dollar for it, but they don't have to because people are willing to pay more.
Yeah. Just like with McDonald's, they had the all day breakfast menu, and then they used the pandemic as an excuse to take it away because people were eating that more than anything else on the menu at all points of the day. So it drove their sales were up, but their sales on their every other day, you know, lunch menu went down. So they took it away.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that I'm trying to make sure that this is actually true because uh, I have, I remember, I remember looking at this, but the AI overview, this fucking shitty thing on Google, um, well, that's just estimating the cost. It's true, but don't take my word for it. You want to look and see, even if it's not, just the cost and with how much money they're willing to make on something is not the entire story. You know, it's supply and demand. It's how much of the market share do they have, or just trying to charge people as much as they can before people start leaving. And I think America has been set up so much in a way for people that are unhappy, overworked, that they're willing to kind of put up with it. It's like, oh, whatever, it's an extra dollar on Netflix. Oh, we can't password share anymore, like whatever. And I'm interested in seeing like how far it actually goes before people take a stand. And I know there have been a lot of people that are um, mad about health costs, especially those that have needed surgery or needed our visits for um, emergencies that they've had. And that one's harder to get people behind too, just because they not too many people. There's a lot of people that have dealt with it, but there's not really enough to like get people behind it. And you still have those that argue like, oh well, they charge you should have to pay that back. You got this. It's like I I understand the insurance companies and the healthcare companies, and they're basically two businesses trying to make money off of each other. And insurance companies just started charging hospitals, or or hospitals just started charging insurance companies for $150 for a bandage or whatever the heck it is, and they just kept like pushing it and pushing it and pushing it to see how much money they could get off of them. I even heard uh, I'll talk about the gym here in a minute in the sauna, but there were people talking about Um, somebody will pay you to get an MRI done at their MRI place, their MRI imaging, or people that'll pay you to go get physical therapy done at their place. And a man was saying that in a year, that person, because he knew the guy, had charged his insurance like $60,000.
Holy crap.
And again, I can't verify this at all, but this is a huge problem. Insurance is a huge problem for and these health companies, well, let's say hospital companies and health insurance companies that are just charging inordinate amounts of money for these procedures and whatnot. And the only people that it's affecting are the people that are just looking to get care. And I know the companies that hold, so after Obamacare, companies started insurance companies started having their own like pharmaceutical holding companies. So when you go to the pharmacy and you give them that insurance, you have to buy that from your insurance's like holding company, and they can charge you like an arm and a leg for Tylenol. And this is one of the things that Congress was looking at shutting down after the United Healthcare CEO got shot. But it had basically said with Obamacare that a certain percentage of what you take from these people has to go back into patient care. So the way that they could get around it and still make money was to set up their own pharmaceutical holding companies and then charge people whatever they wanted to be able to get like Tylenol or whatever drug that they had. Um, and I believe there were gag orders put on pharmacies to not tell the people how much it would actually cost without insurance or to use good RX or what have you.
Yeah, pharmacy is, and even doctors' offices they have to offer cash prices. Because like I know that I went to urgent care And like, this was probably a couple of months ago, and I have a $50 copay with my insurance. But then when you look at the billing statement, they sent a $250 bill to insurance, but insurance only paid $200 of it based on their research and their competitors of comparable prices. But then when I actually go to when I went to an urgent care when I was unemployed, I was like, I don't have insurance. They're like, oh, well, it's only going to be $110 for the doctor to see you.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the kind of the 80-20 rule in healthcare where it's 80% of healthcare dollars should be spent on care and quality improvement, while the other 20% can be spent on other costs. There's also a saying in life that applies to that 80-20 rule of you spend 80% of your life to only have 20% of, or or it's kind of like the concept of you get 80% of your wealth in the first 20% of your life or something like that, and then in the last 20% of your life you spend 80% of all of that money on health or towards your health. So healthcare should be a universal right, just like water. But unfortunately, insurance on healthcare industry, just whenever that happened, the 80s, I don't know. I still remember my mom telling me that it cost nothing as a copay for back when she had me in 1989, that it was like $500 got billed to her insurance and they didn't pay anything out of pocket. So that
Yeah.
was 35, almost 36 years ago, March 27th, where healthcare seemed reasonable, but just somewhere in the past 2 or 3 decades went, that went away, and we have to rely on insurance and having it. And yet, like United Healthcare situation, the CEO, there was denied, depose, and deflect or whatever their saying was internally, where they have policies like that because they have to be able to make money on these, um, because they're a nonprofit company, but they have to still be able to show a profit to their investors, or at least that they are capable of, getting return on investment for them. So it's unfortunate, but that's something that we have to push back again. That should we, as a country, have a single payer system or just universal health care, which I actually think is the same thing. So yeah, I mean, doctors in third world country isn't like the 6 figure plus whatever money you take from all these pharmaceutical companies like it is here. It's like how it should be as a service.
Yeah. And kind of the same thing with the LA wildfires and that, how they just started abruptly, like stopping people's coverages. And I know the state of California had said, like, well, if you keep somebody from having house insurance, then you can't sell like any insurance in the state of California. And some companies like backed out completely. They're like, yeah, I mean, it it's going to cost us a lot more to do that. And there's like some back and forth about, they warned them that with the dry season, like this was going to happen. Um, but they're, again, I don't know how they figured it out, but I feel like if you've paid into the system for however many years, like for them to just take it away abruptly, I don't think that's right. But insurance in itself is just such a scam to begin with because I don't know what the percentages are on it. Um, Obviously, the homeowners insurance would have been nice for the people that dealt with that homeowners insurance in Florida, which it costs like so much money. So it's either they take it away completely or they're going to charge you an arm and a leg if you're in like Hurricane Alley or whatever it is. Um,
Yeah,
but
based on you need flood insurance based on the flood zone that's defined by FEMA. So there always seem to be people in Florida, really on the East Coast, so because I used to do mortgages, people always kind of seem surprised, especially being first time homebuyers, that they had to get flood insurance. And then the other thing was kind of arguing or pushing back against FEMA that the home is in the flood zone or not. Because places like Connecticut or Delaware, they're kind of on the coast, or Maryland, it gets kind of sketchy where the actual flood zone is defined. And sometimes local municipalities will have different definitions of it, but it's whatever FEMA defines that particular flood area at. But yeah, it does cost a lot of money to have homeowners insurance in certain areas, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's like healthcare, homeowners insurance, like, the people that fell for the volcano insurance scams or what have you. But there's it started off as like one idea, and then it kind of snowballed in. So we're kind of at where we're at today because of a ton of different decisions. And with inflation in general, it just comes down to greed. And with a universal healthcare system or something like that, like the current costs that go into insurance is mostly administrative costs as well. And they're the ones determining whether or not you need an MRI. So, like, how are they the ones determining if you need an MRI? Well, you don't need to know what you need is this. Go get this first. Like, they're just making these decisions for people. And yeah, I mean, sure, it helps them out in certain ways. And maybe sometimes somebody really doesn't need an MRI, but how are we having it so that they're determining whether or not it's something that you need if your doctor had ordered it? And I get like the costs that go into these things help fund research and like that's great, but health is a business, and that's what they're worried about first and foremost. Like they're trying to get these drugs past FDA approval to be able to sell them on the market for however long the trademark lasts for, which is probably like 10 years or something. And in that time and all the money that they've invested, they're going to charge an arm and a leg for that specific medication. The business side of insurance, pharmaceutical companies, and everything else, it's like most people kind of have a general understanding now. Um, Growing up, I had anxiety. I had really bad anxiety, and it took them so long to be able to figure out it was just anxiety. And luckily, I was able to go through a bunch of different tests to make sure it wasn't anything too serious. But yeah, a lot of people hear stories all the time. Like they're disregarded, they're judged for maybe being overweight, or maybe they have a history of just being anxious and they're not getting the tests done that they want to get done. Insurance company won't pay for it, doctor won't order it, or whatever. And they end up having a huge problem. I don't know what the I don't know what the solution is really to kind of fix all this stuff, but it is a huge issue. It's continued to ravage the savings of people when they get into an accident or they have a surgery, and insurance isn't going to cover some of it, even though they said they were, and like all this stuff that is back and forth. So I don't think it's radical to think that anybody in the richest country in the world should have to worry about a hospital bill or being able to pay for their next prescription or whatever else. Like I'm glad if we figure out some sort of system, and maybe not even like having it tied to employment necessarily, because they have the power to give you a shitty insurance plan. Like my insurance plan is a shitty insurance plan. Like I have United Healthcare, and that's like why I've been trying to do things that are helpful to my health and take supplements and get exercise, make sure I get enough sleep, cut down on sugar, cut down on drinking, just because I know if, when push comes to shove, I need to extend my life. I need to stay as fit as physically possible for as long as I can, because I'm not going to be able to deal with uh, the cost of having to get surgery for if I break my leg, or I need to pay attention on the highway so I don't cause an accident, because not only the surgery costs, but the cost that it's going to take if my insurance goes up if I cause an accident. So like, there's a lot of things that like really trying to be cognizant of, because yeah, not only making sure that I'm healthy, but so that when I reach my 40s and my 50s, I'm not on dialysis because I drank too much, or heart medication, or whatever else.
Yeah, or Alzheimer's that comes eventually with heavy drinking, as well as Parkinson's.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, even more long term effects, like things that especially will wear out, like your heart. So you could potentially have a heart attack. Yeah, like drinking and just being healthier overall, to state the obvious, is just way better for you in a lot of regards, mentally, physically, financially. So yeah, I'm kind of transition towards our, keeping up on our goals. I was down 10 pounds last week. Well, uh, I kind of plateaued this week because I had a couple of extra helpings of tortilla chips. So, I didn't lose any weight. I didn't gain any weight, but it was not a good week towards my weight goal. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Um, I think, well, I think like the biggest thing is just starting to, and I've seen articles about this too, but just like starting to think about it so that it's not automatic. You don't just go and, like a zombie and go to the kitchen cabinet and grab something, or, you're drunk or you're high or you're sleepy or whatever else that you just go. So really just like coming down to thinking about it. So I know it's helpful. It was at least helpful for me, and I got lazy about it. But tracking my calories and doing that stuff is because you start to realize how much that you do eat, and you're at least cognizant of when you are eating and when you've finished eating that you're like, okay, well that was out of the normal for where I'm at, where I'm currently at, or where I want to be. So yeah, I mean, like the slip ups and whatnot are going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're kind of tired, didn't really have, you had a long day. Uh, so you're kind of already out of your routine anyway, not to make an excuse. And you had to put your kid down, you know, again, won't make an excuse for chalking up to just being a parent, but I took my son to the aquarium. Well, because my wife is, she owns a restaurant, so she's been running that, working overtime, baking too, as an extra source of income. So I've been stepping up with my son, taking him to the aquarium. Then after we went to Costco and got him a hot dog, and then I didn't really have anything because I was just kind of focused on him and having a great day, making sure everything was perfect. I didn't feel like making anything, so I just grabbed artichoke and spinach dip out of our fridge, and then I went to town with it with a some some uh, some Aldi brand tortilla chips.
Yeah.
So happens, but I've made sure for this week I meal prepped, always within my calorie limit, so we're good to go. We're back on the horse, this fat horse.
Well, you get to a point where you just like you're not even willing to think about it anymore, about like what you're eating or trying to eat better or whatnot. So um yeah, like keeping it in your mind, like yeah, that wasn't really what I'm trying to be, but yeah, getting back up on the horse, like don't fail twice in a row or something. Or if you have a goal to like maybe cheat days on the weekends, and really strict eating during the week. But yeah, I think like nutrition's hard for a lot of people, and like I've said before, like me eating better is harder because I eat more often. To be able to keep myself energized and um, fed to the point where I don't just get so hungry and I'm working and I just DoorDash something. Like, I have to set up overnight oats at night or wake up early to cook eggs in the morning or, um, during lunch. I know I'm going to have to commit some of my lunchtime to cooking and cleaning up after myself and what have you. Eating better, but depending on your eating habits before, like, yeah, it is easier to open up the chip dip, open up the bag of chips, go to town, and just put them both away. You don't have to worry about doing dishes or cooking or cleanup or whatnot. But yeah, no, I think it's good. Like I said, I mean, like, just being honest and understanding, like, yeah, that was uncharacteristic of me, where I want to be, what I want to do, and yeah, just keep working at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just like going back to your point from earlier on, or to match tie you to your point from earlier of just the convenience. If we go the extra steps to, start gardening or, sourcing our own food, if like, because I know a lot of municipalities around, or a lot of cities, I know it's kind of fancy mortgage talk, but a lot of cities around us are allowing like you to have chickens, and you can have like a chicken coop. Like I know in the city of Berkeley, it's like, I think it's like five total people can have it within city limits. But like I just bought from a coworker today. I actually just bought a dozen eggs from her for $3, which is like 1/15 of what eggs cost in a grocery store right now. It feels like so. But going out of our weights for the convenient to do the inconvenient thing will be more convenient in the long run. That 80% will pay off for the 20%, like I was talking about earlier. 20 of that 80 will say, to match the pattern of, we're going to spend 80% more effort into this. So you don't have these long-term health issues, and it keeps your healthcare costs and your insurance down because you're a healthy person. You don't need to go see a podiatrist. You don't, to get some gross ingrown toenail or whatever. You don't have to do that, or you do that less frequently, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, even if I wasn't doing healthy things, I think I would just stay away from the hospital as much as possible, anyways. So, like, or just the doctors in general. Because yeah, I mean, I do donate blood 2 or 3 times a year. I can order my own blood test and read it. It's not like I need a doctor to tell me because you open it up. It's like, this is high, this is low. Like, if there's a time where something's high, something's low, and you might want them to interpret it to say, like, oh, well, you might have an issue with this. Let's test and make sure that's not the issue. Or, it might just be, you might need a supplement on whatever that you have is low. But yeah, I mean, outside of a physical each year, like, I try to stay away from doctors as much as possible. And for some people, that's not about being healthy and feeling like you don't have to go to the doctors. I mean, I know a ton of people that just never go to the doctor and they're about as unhealthy as a fat cat. Like,
Yeah, I'm definitely that fat cat right now. Trying not to be, but uh, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of one of those people sometimes. I haven't really been to the doctor regularly in a while, but I've been starting to go recently. And ooh, that's an eye opener. So I think that's what people are afraid of, in that, like, that mindset of, oh, they're just going to tell me bad news. Why should I go? I'll only go when I really feel like I need it. So I guess knowing yourself is the best practice in that, but everyone's kind of different. Everyone was raised different. So, you know, a lot of people are in the camp of I need to go every year to get a physical at least and get blood work and all that. So, you know, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
well, it would be an interesting case study to figure out because you always had the other people that had like the worrying parents, like they couldn't stay the night anywhere, they couldn't be out for too long, they Always had to call home and like check in like constantly, and probably the same people that anytime they were sick or whatever, like their parents took them to the hospital or the doctor like right away just to make sure like they're okay and got them on medication right away and whatnot. As compared to what most other parents are like, "You're fine," which was kind of close to what my parents were growing up, and probably what a lot of people's parents were growing up because they didn't want to have to pay for you to go to the doctor unless you were literally on death's door. So it would be interesting to see like if we took those two camps of people and seeing like maybe how often they go to the doctor now, or maybe just like their general bill of health too.
Yeah, growing up, it was kind of like how my parents were. They were definitely the we're gonna take you to the doctor now because you have a slight cough. So I have in my adult life, I haven't gone as much as I should. I'll do like the yearly physical, even though it's been prior to getting my most recent one. It had been a couple of years. So I'm definitely trying to turn it around, especially having, and this is just my excuse for I feel like everything now, but it's having a kid, so I want to be around as long as possible. I don't necessarily, I don't want to like outlive my kid, but I want to be there for him to be an adult and possibly have grandkids. So, but for the present, I just want to be healthier so I can chase him around the park and not lose breath as quickly as I do, which feels like as soon as I start running.
Yeah, no, I mean cardio is just tough for anybody, or for most people at least, especially not having done it in so long. So it's really hard to really understand where to start. I don't know. I'm dealing with my own mental blocks, like at the gym, with not wanting to lift more weights. I start to worry about if I hurt myself because I know how my mood's been affected since being sick, not being able to go to the gym for about a week until this morning. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into kind of like the decisions you make every day. Because I don't know how many thousands of decisions we make every day, but a lot of them are like pretty automatic too. But yeah, I mean, definitely trying to be around and trying to be fit. You know, nobody wants to be 40 or 50 years old and having to take care of one of their parents because they neglected their health for however long. So yeah, I mean, it's good that you're like thinking about those things, and me being an uncle, I'm kind of thinking about those things as well. So then it starts to be like, well, to get a better job, I got to be able to do this or that, or help them out when they need to, maybe coach a soccer team or what have you. So um, as far as my goal for February, I did buy a walking pad for my standing desk. So I've had the goal for anytime at my personal computer or when I'm working from home to either be standing or walking throughout the day. So I've been doing this for about a week, anywhere from 1 to 3 hours walking. Been trying to track my steps a little bit better. I don't think I'll be able to get to 10,000 steps a day. And I was trying to get two birds stoned at once because I have a trying to stop watching pornography. Um, but instead,
It's convenience. That's what it is.
yeah, it's the convenience, and that's the whole basis for the whole arguments of anything else. But um, there have been a couple times I've just done a good old standing jerk. So, um, I don't have the numbers to say that I'm doing it less often than I had before, but at least now like I'm getting a little bit more exercise when doing it. So we'll,
multi and you're multitasking, so you're working your brain. It's a little left brain, right brain action. I like.
yeah, I don't need any more mental gymnastics to talk myself into it because I put in like I put in a like safe search filter on my phone for like no adult content. And I meant because you have to put it in. I put it in with just like close my eyes and did it randomly, but you have to do it twice. So
Oh no.
somehow I managed to do it twice without looking at it. So luckily it's off my phone. My whole phone's in grayscale to keep me from looking at it too much too, which hasn't helped very much recently. I've been watching too much TikTok, but um, yeah, the whole thing with the computer is, I guess I could do it for the computer too, Um, but I'd have to look and see. Like, I don't want like saucy stories about something. Like, I feel like I can get away with that. I don't know, I fucking jerk off to that. But yeah, no, like pornography has been. I mean, I had a treasure trove on my iPod Touch when I was like 13. So it's been ingrained in me for so long, and my generation kind of like had grown up with it. So as much as I can, just try to get rid of it because there's a lot of there's a lot of issues that I have with pornography industry in general. Um, yeah, just yeah. So we're getting to that point, but the quick hits of dopamine are things that I need to cut down on, and that's like the biggest source of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to cut down on your jerking off, maybe try doing it backwards on the treadmill, because the fear of God will make you want to climax, and then it won't be the same next time. Maybe try that.
Well, I don't stand on the treadmill while I'm doing it, but um, it's getting to a point where I'm like over here and having to like contour like this way.
Are you like on the treadmill with like one leg, like you're trying to kickstart a bike?
Yeah. And it's
Nice.
like the dogs that they're trying to get to exercise and they just put like one paw on. They're doing it. That's basically me. But yeah, I mean, it's a problem and it has been for so long, but it's so ingrained into my brain that it just kind of happens. So luckily we're going to think about it more often. I don't want to put a I don't want to have to put a sticky note on my monitor to say like stop watching porn or whatever. But well,
Sticky note on your sticky desk for watching porn, you sinner.
yeah, I mean that maybe if they could like actually find out if your relatives like are watching you and they could
Or
prove that
dead ancestors.
my dead ancestors watching me contour my body around my walking pad so I can still see the porn as um, whatever. So if they can like prove that's actually happening, I think we can cut down on this by like 99% across
Hell
the.
yeah. Yeah, no, I don't want no one finding out that I jerk it just to fall asleep. It makes me not want to do it at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, not to
It's
keep
fine.
peeling back these layers. But yeah, I was hoping it could be helpful in that, you know, I get more exercise, get my steps in. But I've just been like the adjustment, I've just been so tired. And I think that's another one of like the mental block things that my body is just convincing me that I'm tired because it doesn't want to walk anymore. So that's trying to get past that has been tough. But I've been, rotating around different like things to just try to do stuff more healthily. And yeah, sitting down is definitely one of the ones that it's just so easy for me to just like sit down and let time go by not doing anything. So hopefully this is a good medium to make sure I get like some steps in during the day. It's not really exercise, I don't think. Well, it's more exercise than sitting down. So we're just gonna keep working at it, and that's pretty much my goal this month. So anytime working from home or just on my PC, you either need to be standing or walking.
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow in your footsteps, literally and figuratively, and get one of those. I get that self because my birthday's coming up. So last year I bought myself a really expensive monitor, uh, which uh, didn't really do anything except give me a somewhat of a short dopamine rush. But I think I'm actually gonna make that walking pad purchase for when I work at home and obviously on the weekends. So
Yeah, it's good. I've noticed. So I've kind of got like my elbows on the desk here, and then I have like a little memory foam pad, so I set my wrist on when I type. But sometimes I can, if I need a break a little bit, because I didn't realize this, but you'd hear about like people that could run like long distances, but they get on the treadmill and they can't run very far because our pace is at a variable when we can control it when we're on the ground. Whereas a treadmill makes you run that constant speed forever. So when I get tired with walking or whatnot, I just put a little bit of my weight down on here to compensate for that while still going. But yeah, my brain, every time I'll start it up and I'm just working here and I'm like, oh, I'm thirsty. Pause it. Gotta go get a drink, come back, turn it back on. Um, oh, I gotta grab my phone to sign into Forta token, turn it off. Like, there's a lot of stopping and going, but yeah, I'm hopeful that I can just kind of get it into a habit because I had going to the gym as a habit figured out, and then I started taking my duffel bag in the house and unpacking everything because I would shower there, so I'd have wet clothes, I'd have sweaty clothes, so I would come in basements where the laundry room is, so then I would hang up the wet stuff and then take the sweaty stuff out of the bag and then have it set up down there. So the next time I would come down, I would pack everything. Pack up the wets, like the shower caddy thing that's like mesh, and my flip flops, and I would pack those in and get clean towels and clean clothes to put in there for the next time I go. So that's been like a good compounding habit to have. Um, so I'm trying to look for other ways to be able to do that too. It's like, all right, I get up, log in, walk for at least 30 minutes, and then throughout the rest of the day it can be variable. But like, get my water, get my coffee, go to the bathroom, do like whatever I need to do before I get on this for 30 minutes. And then like that first 30 minutes, just get through it. And then throughout the day, I can kind of like switch it on and off.
Yeah, I like it. It definitely shows that when you get into the routine, you make the best of it.
I try to, but you know, I had a wave of depression that went on for like, started like 2 or 3 days ago. And with exercise, it's supposed to help, but some days you feel like you're not doing enough, or things that you wish you would have worked on earlier on in your life. The the things that you do that are just bad throughout the day. And even as you're fixing one habit, you might fall into a different habit. Like, I've been drinking Diet Cokes the last few days. And even though I've been like walking more, then that starts to become my crutch, even though I've started drinking less. And then you start to look and compare, like, well, maybe it's not as bad as what I was doing there, or maybe it is, or like, how can I really justify or quantify like how much better this is compared for how much worse this is, when you're kind of feeding into better habits and then also worse habits. And yeah, I mean, it's really gotten to me. But I think I just keep telling myself, if I get up the next day and work in this job I don't get paid very much for, get paid in thanks, which aren't denominations of U.S. currency, so I can't use those for anything apparently. I really, yeah, my real estate agent was surprised when I tried to pay for thanks, for the down payment on this house I wanted. Um, yeah, it's what I've dealt with, depression, anxiety since I've been like 16, and sometimes you just get that wave that kind of hits you, overtakes you. At least I do. I know there's probably different classifications when it comes to depression, but yeah, just trying to keep your head above water until it passes is kind of tough. And then get back into it.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of experience last couple of days. It was my wife's just been kind of has been gone. We're in a tough, not real tough, but not great financial situation right now. So she's had to take on a little bit more, you know, cupcake or baking jobs than she probably would normally want to. But she's going on vacation at the end of the month, so she needs money. But not being able to see her on a regular basis, and having to step up more with my son. Not that that should be like a reason to step up. Um, it's been tough, and I felt like I was just kind of like screwing up at work. Like, just, a lot of things are automated, so I probably shouldn't be missing certain things. And I just like wasn't getting simple concepts on that I probably should have had earlier. But, and just feel like I'm failing friends and family all the time, like my brother and sister. I was watching a slow motion argument between my brother and older sister via text over something stupid. So, just all of that said, I took my son to the aquarium and just kind of watched his face light up, and it made me think, not think about emails, about stress, about sibling arguments. And so I think just kind of like, for me, I overthink a lot. I kind of do think that I make a right decision, but then was I stubborn about it? Was I not open to, not as open to change as I should have been? Then I started second guessing myself, and then kind of spirals into from there. But I didn't care about anything else when he was watching like a shark or a stingray kind of like come up to the glass. So I hope everyone finds their aquarium moment where they just kind of get the clarity of sometimes just keeping it simple and not overthinking things will be, better for you and your mental health. But, you know, that's not an easy task to do. So, but that's something that I've been also working on lately too. Just forgiving myself and just keeping it simple.
Yeah. Um, Somebody talked about it before, like being able to see the world through your son's eyes and the innocence or the new experiences that you get that he has that you get to share with him. That's kind of been an escape for you mentally. And yeah, I think even when I was going to touch on with like this wave of depression that had hit me, because I had gotten sick. I mean, you can add in the seasonal depression or just kind of the change in um, what I'm doing each day. So your body's like set up to deal with routines relatively easily, and then you kind of throw a wrench in that, and things can kind of get out of whack. So it sounds like we've both been dealing with that, just the change in routines, and then trying to figure out like right away on how you can kind of best deal with that. Like once you realize like maybe if you are missing some things at work, maybe you do have to focus harder on writing things down, which is, this is not me talking to you, but things that I've thought about. But I also hate my company, so it kind of goes against like I don't want to be more productive. But some things that I've thought about, like I'm not my best today at the gym, but what's worth more to me, and this is what I dealt with today. Like it's worth more to me that if I can hit all these machines that I planned on hitting, I'll just do less weight. Like I want to feel like I've done everything that I could in the spots that I wanted to hit. I'm going to make sure that even if I can't do 20 minutes on the treadmill, I'm going to do 10. I'm going to get um, my other stuff done. I don't need to expand on this any more than I already have, but that's one one thing I've done, and it's easier because you're already there, and you're talking yourself into doing less work essentially. Whereas other cases of you know other things that you would do maybe at work, or if you're hanging out with your son, or maybe around the house, be like, oh, well, I'm going to do the dishes, or I'm going to do laundry, or I'm going to do this with my son. Like that might be a little bit harder, but just like things that I've thought about, like, okay, if I don't have the best mental day at work, like what are the absolute things that I need to get done? And I'm going to focus on those. And then once I get those done, like if I can push it to another day, then I'll push it. If not, just kind of see how I feel at the end of it. But yeah, I get where you're coming from too with work or friends or anything else. Like if you have those arguments, or you said something, or maybe you didn't speak up or what have you, like, we just dealing with so many of these choices each and every day. But I think if it comes down to, because I mean, like, called my buddy earlier and we were talking about stuff because he had started a new job and we just had his surprise 30th last weekend. He's dealing with relationship issues and everything else. It's like, um, if you know your character and kind of how you are 99% of the time, like I fall into it a lot with um, maybe saying something I shouldn't have, like maybe a joke didn't land the right way or what have you. But um, a lot of times overthinking is like stressing yourself out about it twice because you like try to talk to people and they're like, oh, I mean, I didn't even think anything by that, you know, but at least in your mind. So even like recounting that situation, you can at least show like, hey, I care about this. You mean this to me enough that, I thought about this and I just wanted to make sure like, this isn't, I didn't mean it that way, or, I was just joking around. Hope, this is working out or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually talking about at work today, like, she's saying that this one of our marketing people was saying that she doesn't want to get married until she's at least 30 because the statistically the rate for success of divorcing or success of the marriage increases if you get married like later in life. So she's saying she wanted to wait till she was at least 30 um, to get married, even though she's been in a committed relationship with her partner for like well over 3 years. She doesn't want to get married until she's 30, just for that reason. Um, I guess along that same lines of, I mean, I guess that's a way of looking at it, but then like I don't know. I guess I was just like I get married at 31 almost. No, 30. I just turned 30, and so I guess my marriage is going to be successful, but I don't know, kind of chalking it up to the numbers like that from that perspective just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I guess looking at it from that one dimension, she's happier. So the point of not overthinking it, I guess go for it. She's committed to it, not second guessing herself, and sticking to a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's good. Like I keep catching myself like trying to. Somebody posted about the Taco Bell chicken being like 72 grams of protein for 10 pieces, and my first thought is like, there's absolutely no way that's possible. Um, but I just let it go. Like just let it go.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things, you just let it go. And
Yep.
especially when it comes to like talking about people, like, yeah, I mean, we can sit here and we can talk about like the context of whatever studies that people have found out about that. And I'll tell you, like, there are a lot of single 30-year-olds. I'll be 30 in May. Like, we're all fucked up in the head. So maybe maybe there's something else that's going on that's causing these issues for getting married younger. But especially now in today's age, with like social media and trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to like stay happy and whatnot. Like if there are, it's all context. Like if you have issues in your relationship now that you're not working on, you're not trying to come to a compromise with, or what have you, like you're not going to have a successful marriage, not if the relationship itself isn't successful. So I think it kind of comes down more to that. And I watched like a lot of these, I forget the guy's name, but he's doing like these financial audits for people and are basically like telling them like, you wouldn't, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they had a lady that had like blew through like $250,000, and she's like, well, I could have had more. And he's like, well, I'm glad you didn't because you would have blown through it. And she's like, no, I think I would have kept it. Like, what do you mean? You spent 250,000. You would have spent 300,000. Like it would have been easy to spend that extra amount of money. So I think it's kind of the same thing with relationships in regards to talking to my friend about it today. It was kind of the same thing I said. Like, sometimes we're the reason why we're single at this age and trying to get together and like figure these things out. But we know how tough it is just trying to be cognizant of being healthy in regards to like exercising, getting enough sleep, eating healthy. Like you add the relationship part on top of it and trying to communicate more, trying to be a better partner, understanding someone's feelings about certain things, or just listening in general, which I think is is a skill that's lost on a lot of people. I need to work on it a lot more, honestly. But yeah. So did you say something? Is that why you brought this up? That might have been uncouth, or
No, it just kind of it just popped in my head and kind of just went with it. Didn't really add anything. If anything, it kind of subtracted to our, uh, our topic. But I don't know. It just came up today. It's fresh on my mind. So I mean, I didn't necessarily say something uncouth. I just kind of said, I got married and it was the single biggest pain in my ass. So don't do it. And then everyone kind of looked at me, and I was like, just kidding. That was a test. You all failed. You were supposed to say, "Oh, Brian, don't you mean it was the best decision ever made?" And then I go, "Yeah." So that was it.
nice save.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like they weren't like looking at me like I just killed somebody in front of them, but there was definitely a look to it. I didn't really appreciate it, but I did turn it around, so it's all good.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know. Marriage to me has never really seemed like that big of a deal, but I have I had friends that I mean I've been in so many weddings and invited to so many weddings, and sometimes you kind of just know that's where it's going, and but they all kind of say the same thing depending on how much time and effort you put into it. Just the financial burden it puts on people is like crazy, and I know like the transition period can be tough for some couples too because they finally like made that next step, like that commitment, like a financial commitment and a celebration with all your friends and family to celebrate that commitment and your love. And it kind of gets to that point and freaks people out a little bit. So I do know of some divorces from people like I went to high school with, but um, other than that, like, yeah, I mean, I just hope people um, found it enjoyable, that they're happy now because of it. But on the outside looking in, I mean, you never really know, like, if people are happy in their marriage or are working on things or what have you. But yeah, I mean, I truly hope the best for everybody and a happy, long marriage. Yay.
Yeah, I speak from experience when marriage isn't easy. I mean, relationships in general, and you're kind of talking about just social, uh, you know, socializing is tough. There's so many different, feelings and sides of stories. And even if you read somebody on a particular topic and you press on it and then you go, "Oh wow, I didn't like. I thought you were gonna, vibe with that," and they don't. Just in the most basic form, just relationships are tough. So with marriage, yeah, I mean, now we got to get the government involved. So, but it's just kind of like any other relationship, really. Of there's two people trying to make something work that you're not going to agree on everything 100%, but it's just coming to a compromise, putting in the time and effort, putting in that 80% more. That's something that I've worked on in the past year because, again, I know our listeners and around the world are probably sick of hearing me talk about my drinking problem. But, when I was drinking, I may have seemed happier, but I was also more emotional and more easily exposed to depression because alcohol increases your chances to go even deeper into a depression. So, but yeah, relationships are tough, but if you're willing to work on it, just like anything else, putting in the time and the ethic into it, it make your life easier, but also improve your partner, grow together.
Yeah. No, I think that's what it's all about, right? It's the old ball and chain,
Exactly.
not how it's supposed to be. It's, yeah, learning and growing together. It's supposed to be your best friend, someone that you can tell anything to, that's willing to listen to, whatever you have to say. And then, comes to children or whatever. And, and having somebody that kind of has not only both of your DNAs, but has different personalities that they developed because of you and whatnot. And I think it's something that remains to be true to say. Um, it's kind of good to tell people, like, yeah, I know you have this. They're like really excited to get married, or they finally want to get married, or they want some their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever to propose to them. Like, there's definitely worth something to let them know, like, hey, it's a big commitment. It takes a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of your time to do these things. So, like, just make sure you're ready. Like, I think that is worth something, but it also depends on how, like, kind of how you deliver that too. Um, so yeah, like, jokingly, or if, like, depending on how people know you, I think when you can be a little bit more endearing, because if you say something, people are going to take it a certain way, as opposed to, somebody new that was just part of the conversation, trying to be the devil's advocate or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's always good to pay attention of whether you being devil's advocate is beneficial in that scenario. Sometimes it might feel like pile on, but yeah, relationships are a funny thing.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're definitely worth it if you can make them work. Yeah, hopefully the good times outweigh the bad. But a lot of those conversations that I feel like I didn't have, a lot of those difficult conversations that try to avoid the most important ones to have, and tough times that you go through, and trying to find a way to get through them. Because yeah, I mean, we're creatures that like routines, and adding another person, I mean, that's just another variable. So it kind of depends. Moneyball, adapt or die. That's the whole thing with life. And if you're able to make these commitments with the right people and for the right reasons, they can be very beneficial for both parties. But it's not to say that it doesn't take a whole lot of work to make these things work. But yeah, a lot of people don't see that, like how you're saying with your alcoholism. They just see it as, oh, it's fun, Brian, fun, happy Brian. Not that
Yeah,
you having to deal with you the next day when you're hungover or whatever else or shit.
yeah. So yeah, what do you want to move on to underrated pieces of media that you suggest or you've watched recently or read recently?
Yeah, well, I'm currently reading Mistborn, the first book in the Mistborn, like, 7 books that Sanderson's written. And he's written, I don't know, like 22 books over 15 years. Like, the guy's a machine. But Mistborn's been pretty good. Uh, Kind of like epic fantasy power systems around metal. So there's these people that are called Mistborn, and they have the ability to, like, burn metal. Um, you ingest, like, these specific kinds of metal, and you're able to do certain things with them. So, like, one metal makes you stronger, one metal, like, heightens your senses, yada yada. So I haven't made it too far in that book, but it's been pretty good. A lot of people that like epic fantasy like that series, and he has a different series too that's also highly rated. So I've just been working through that. As far as a movie, they did put Tread on Max that I watched today, and I know we had recommended it before, but I rewatched it, and it's one of those movies that it lacks so much in certain areas, like with dialogue, but it makes up for it a lot with, like, visuals and action, and it somewhat exists in a niche place where it's unlike any movie that you've seen before. But you kind of have to go in with an open mind to be able to watch it. And for this week, I wanted to talk about Moon. Moon is a Sam Rockwell film directed by Duncan Jones, who Duncan Jones also did Source Code, and he did the Warcraft movie, which the Warcraft movie kind of killed his career. But Moon is very good. if you like sci-fi, you like kind of like one man show type, because it follows Sam Rockwell, who is on the moon for a specific mission, and he's there by himself, and he has this family back home that he's trying to get back to, and he only has like a certain amount of time that is left on the moon until he can return to his family. But there's a twist, um, and it's really just him most of the movie, and it's another one of those movies, specifically like Dread, where it's in a niche that it's unlike any other movie, really. It follows the same themes of some sci fi movies, but to really get that invested in like one person, and the character he plays is just so great. You really become like invested in his journey, even though there's not really much going on. So that's something I highly recommend. It's a very underrated movie, but very highly rated by people that have seen it. And it's another one of those that has kind of flown under the radar.
Nice. I haven't watched that, but I will definitely check that out this week. I wanted to revisit Dread. I haven't seen it in a long time. So like I was talking about it last week on this week. Now that it's on Max, I'll actually check it out. So Carl Urban's such an underrated actor, like character actor specifically. Because he gets a lot of recognition for obviously like Lord of the Rings and being Butcher from The Boys. But I mean, he played a really great Bones in Star Trek. Dread, he was good in. He kind of like, I think we talked about this before. I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast or not. But just he didn't have a lot of lines in that, but just like his kind of facial cues and you know great editing. Like he didn't really need to say much, just kind of have his presence felt. So I think that was just him as an actor to his ability to do that. He's also one of the assassins in Bourne movie. So you know, and if you're as old as I am, he was also I think like either a stunt coordinator or an actor on Xena, Warrior Princess, because it was filmed in New Zealand and he's from there. So um, that was yeah, he's one of my favorite actors. But I also like Sam Rockwell, so I'll also check out Moon too. So those both sound like great movie recommendations.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell to me, I think he's one of those people that directors just like working with, because he has been in so many things by in some capacity over the years. And yeah, I mean, he always brings it. He's plays his character very well, especially in this film where kind of tests his chops out quite a bit because it's just him. So a lot of it's like um, whatever emotional responses to his environment, his mission, and things, or kind of in the room by himself, acting things out. He doesn't have, he's not playing off of anybody else. So, yeah, I'd highly recommend that. And Carl Urban is also in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah,
Uh, most
yeah,
people recognize him in that because his head is shaved, but
yeah.
he's also
And
pretty good in that. Like, yeah, Carl Urban's been around for a long time, and yeah, luckily he's finally starting to get like the main character uh, recognition for Butcher in The Boys. Unfortunately, just a TV series, but pretty good TV series at that. And yeah, I mean, I agree with his facial expressions and cues in the movie because you only see like this part of his face, like mustache and down. Um, but I, I don't think it really showed too much of his acting range. There were some scenes that kind of did. So I guess it's hard, maybe like one of those things where you have to really pay attention to like how your mouth looks if you're like disheveled or upset or angry or whatever else. So um, maybe that would
yeah,
help it, but
it was kind of like a throwback to like the old like Clint Eastwood movies or just like those old like silent hero type films from like the 60s and 70s. Where they might say a line or two, or like even like the Mandalorian and like the early like first. season or two. Just like those old westerns of where the gunslinger would come in, shoot a couple guys, and then leave. Kind of throwback to that. So maybe it was part of his. Uh, Maybe it wasn't part of his research for the role or whatever, but he definitely kind of, for me, that's what kind of reminded me of, was like the old school like gunslinger kind of and the movie itself kind of reminded me of that, but him specifically. So it was just, even though he wasn't acting and like, it wasn't like some sort of drama where he could show his full range. I think with what limited, you know maybe screen time or what have you, he kind of made the most of it. So that's what impressed me about that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's like I said, a good film. Some people aren't going to like it. Other people, it might be one of those things where you take a chance on it and it becomes like one of your favorite films because it kind of hits you in a different way. Like I was talking about, it's one of those niche things. So, but yeah, give it a try. If you have the subscription, if you have other ways of obtaining to be able to watch Dread or Moon, because I don't know what Moon is on currently. It's still something I highly recommend anybody to watch. And it might not be for you, and if it's not, then that's okay. But if you can have a respect and appreciation for kind of a movie that's different in what you're currently seeing, because that's the whole point of the segment. If it's something different, and maybe you finish it and you don't like it as much, but you have pieces of it that you can respect in some regards, because I know I get through a lot of stuff and it's like, well, I can respect it for this, but I don't really like, it's not really my cup of tea or whatever.
Yeah. Underrated piece of media that I wanted to recommend this week. It might not seem like it, but it's only on one platform, and I think if it was released in theaters or like possibly on Netflix, I think it would get more recognition than it deserves. But it's called Prey. It's an exclusive to Hulu, but it's a Predator movie. But this takes place in like the 16 or 1700s, um, with a female lead, and the Predator is slightly less advanced than maybe what you've seen in previous films. But it was kind of like back to the basics. But what made the first Predator so good was like the suspense and just like the slowly kind of taking out what might uh you know interesting kill or cool kill after kill kind of horror slash suspense movie. But I think it was as good, in my opinion, it was as good as the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. uh but it also kind of added to that legacy. There's like a few Easter eggs that play into like the earlier films or films that would come later as far as the timeline was concerned. So yeah, I would recommend that. I know it is exclusive as of yesterday reading to Hulu, but I recommend seeing that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll have to check it out.
And I know that they are working on a sequel for it, but in what capacity, I'm not sure. And if it's going to be exclusive to Hulu or not. But I think it came out in 2021, maybe 2022. Um, I just personally felt like the movie should be talked about a little bit more than it was.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hadn't heard of it, but I'm not up with the whole Alien Predator kind of that lore. I watched Alien versus Predator growing up. I've seen the let's say like 2015 uh, Predator movie, maybe like Predator.
Is that the one with Sterling K. Brown and what's his name from Narcos?
I have no idea.
I think there was The Predator, which was the most recent one prior to Prey, and then before that was Predators with Adrian Brody,
Yeah,
which I
that's
thought,
what I'm thinking of.
okay, yeah, Danny Trejo and uh,
Walton
Uh,
Goggins, Elise Braga, Topher Grace,
yeah.
Ali,
Oh yeah, Michelle Ali was in that, wasn't he?
Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty loaded cast, but yeah, that's another good one. I didn't really like the Predator as much. I felt like it was trying to like, I don't know, be like too much of a cool soft or like meta movie more than an actual, adding to the lore. And I'm not like a big Predator or Alien person either. I just thought that the Prey movie was unique to the first one because I don't even watch like Predator 2 with Danny Glover, and I don't watch AVP. I just kind of I watched Predators because my friends and I, when that movie came out in that time period, that's when we were going to the movies like every week. Didn't matter what was out, like we would just go and see something. So, but I just thought that was one of the more unique, maybe horror suspense movies that have come out recently. So,
I know Alien Romulus too was the one that.
oh yeah, that came out. That's on Netflix right now, I think.
Okay. Yeah, who is this? Callie Spaney? Kaylee Spaney? She was also in Civil War. Yeah, I think she's one of those actors that's gaining traction right now.
Hmm.
So, but all right, I think we went a little over time this week. Not exactly a bad thing. Split it up. It's all just word garbage for a lot of people, anyways. Not really. God, this cough is gonna kill me. Um, just from me being irritated by how much I'm coughing.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, we gave the people a lot of information this week. I think whether it's probably might just go in one ear and not the other, but at least we tried, right? And that's the point of our podcast is to figure ourselves out, holding each other accountable each and every week.
Yep. Just accountability, communication, and yeah, hopefully actions, better, better actions, and the bad habits that we find when we're trying to fix our other bad habits that we pick up. So I'll probably grab a Diet Coke after this against my will. But
Yeah, and I'll probably have some nachos after this. I don't know. I might just go to bed after this, but we'll see.
every day, just got to get a little bit better. Any capacity, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um,
just like they say in football, go 1-0 every week.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Hope you all have a great week. We should be back around this time next week. This should probably be posted, if I'm not lazy, sometime over the next couple days. So, bye bye for now, and yeah, hope to get you something here soon.
Bye, everybody.